Hey guys, welcome to the new Flutter tutorial. In this course, we'll be discussing extensively on how to build apps with Flutter. So basically, we'll cover from the basic of that for us to understand what that language is. Then from there, we'll move on to installing Flutter and building our apps. So why should we learn about Flutter? Flutter transforms the development process, build, test, and deploy app, mobile, web, and desktop. You can develop Android apps, iOS app, desktop app, and web app just using a single code base. That's one of the core reasons why Flutter is a fast-growing framework. As you can see, there are a lot of apps that have been developed by Flutter, and you can check around this website to just move around and learn more. So let's talk about that. That is the core framework, the core language behind Flutter. Flutter apps are built, both the logic and the UI, using that. As you can see, this is that part. You can run this code, then you have that output. It looks very similar to your well-known languages like C++, Java, C Sharp, and so on, which uses a main function, and then this same particular loop syntax is used in many other high-level languages as well. So we'll be covering in a very fast pace the basic of that for us to understand what that is exactly. And as you can see, we have the for loop here. So we'll be taking us through a simple guide of that before we move to the main core part of the course, which is actually building apps with Flutter. If you're already good with that and you're a very experienced programmer, you can skip this part and move to the next part where we install and set up Flutter. So let's check out some popular apps that I've already built: Google Play using Flutter, Google Art, Clash Royale, Binance, PUBG Mobile. All these are all built. CoinMarketCap built in Flutter, Upwork. As you can see, we have a lot more apps. Google Play Console. All these apps right here, they are all built in Flutter. Free Code Camp, built in Flutter. For us to understand the power of this framework and the single code base that was used to develop the app for Android or iOS can be used to deploy the app for mobile, web, and so on. So let's install Visual Studio Code in order to test. In order for us to test the framework, let's test the code on Visual Studio Code. You can install it from here. I already have it installed, so I won't be installing it again. Just click on install. So once you finish installing it, you open your Visual Studio Code. Once it is fully opened, the next thing we need to do is to let's create a folder where we'll be storing all our files and our code. Let's create a new folder. Let's call it that tutorials. That tutorial. Select the folder. The next thing we need to do here is to create a file. Whatever name you give your file, make sure it ends with .dat, D-A-R-T. Then next we install the .dat extension. So go over to the extension and search for that. Search for that. It can take a while to come up. So click on the Dart and install. I've already installed the Dart on my system, so I won't be installing it again. But right here, you won't be seeing all this disable or uninstall. You'll be seeing install there. Click on install and install the Dart. Install the Dart. So let's test a little bit of Dart code. It looks similar to C++ if you are familiar with it, Java, JavaScript, and C Sharp. So let's put in the semicolon and run the code. As you can see, we have hello world printed out. Now let's talk about Dart variables, data types, if else statement, switches, and loop. For variables in Flutter, as other languages, we have a different kind of data types that can be stored in a variable. For example, we have integers, which are numbers that can be used to store natural numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Then we have decimals of data type double, which can be used to store decimal point. And also we have strings. Strings are used to store either word, sentence, or letter. We also have Boolean, which stores only true or false. Then we have map. Map is a very interesting data type because it stores value in key value pair, meaning to access the value stored in the map, we can always use the key of each value to access it. Then we have another data type called lists. Lists are used to store data in sequence. Then let's print out all our data. Let's print out all the data type. You can use it. You can print it out using that run file name. That run, then the file name. As you can see, we have the output here. Let's clear the screen, then run that run. So we have our number double, we have Boolean, map, list from printing the variables. Let's perform another operation. Let's create 4 variables of integer. We need to assign the variable as usual. So number 1, 6, number 2, 20, minus 8, and 12 respectively. We have a double calculate. That's the variable that we store our arithmetic operation in. So we did number 1 times 2 plus num 3 minus num 4 divided by 5. Then let's print it out and see the result. As you can see, that's the result of the calculation printed out on the screen. So next thing we should work on is the conditional statement, basically if else statement. So we created to check which number is the greatest between the 4 numbers. So we use a simple algorithm that check if number 2 is greater than the greatest and the greatest is number 1, then it should set greatest equals to number 2. Then we should check else if number 3 is greater than the greatest, then we have greatest equals to number 3. Same thing for number 4. So we end it with an else ladder. As you can see, that's the last part. We may not add it if you want, but I want to just show us the pattern of the syntax. The greatest is 20. So that means our algorithm works just fine. The next thing we will look at are loops. Let's look at loops, starting with the for loop. Basically, a loop performs an operation until the condition is met. In this case, until I is greater than 10. That's the condition here. So we print number I until I is greater than 10. So we keep on printing I. Then we also have a while loop, also works same thing as a for loop until condition is met. So for in this case, until number until num is greater than 10. As you can see, we printed it out. We have our loop here. It prints num1 to num10, and our also while loop printed num1 to num10. So just a quick rundown of loops. We're not going too deep. We have also do while loop, same thing as a while loop and for loop. It runs until the condition is met. As you can see, these are do while loop executed successfully. So basically, loop are used anytime we want to repeat an action until a condition is met. Next part, let's go on to switch. Switch statement also work similar to if else. Basically, it checks the variable month and check for the cases. Let's clear the screen so that we can see better. Let's clear the screen and delete all these parts. So as you can see, we have month equals to 1. So if we are to pass this month now and print it out, and you can see we have January because month is 1. If we change to 3, it will print March because we said case 1, case 2, case 3. Switch can also be any data type. So in this case, we are using an integer. So we are adding another new case for 4. You can add this on your own program because I expect you to be following up as we are doing this. You can add this on your own part up till December. Then once you say 12, it prints. We begin with the main function. So similar to main function, exactly how it was written, we created our own function. We call it add numbers. This add number, as you can see, it returns a type of void, meaning a void return type returns nothing. We won't expect anything to be returned from this function. So let's add our variable num1 and num2. Basically, our task here is to add them together and print it. So same thing we did in the operation of arithmetic. So now let's test it out. To test it out, we need to call the function add numbers that we created initially. We call the function and we pass in our two numbers which print out the sum. Sum equals to 10. Let's test another function. Let's call it multiply and add two numbers, then print it out. You can also try this on your side to perform other operations like division, like modulus, and so on. So we have this. Now we are creating a new function type that returns something to us, meaning not void. As you can see, we want to check the age limit of the user. This function is a type of string, meaning it's not void. That means we should expect a string to be returned back to us. We should remember the string data type we talked about in the beginning, meaning it will return a sentence or a word or a letter as we pass it to the return. So we also have int return type for function and all other type of return. So we set our age. Int age is less than 1, it should return invalid age because we know that age can't be less than 1. We are taking in the age limit and we are storing it into the string age limit value because it returns something, but add numbers and multiply are void. They won't return anything, where age limit is a string. So whatever is being returned from the string can be stored into another string and print it out. let's check for if the age is greater than 1 and less than 13. That means let's return you are young. So next thing is we check if the age is greater than 13, less than 20, you are a teenager. And then the next part is to check if the age is more than 19, less than 40, you are a youth. And then 40 to 60, you are an adult. Anything greater than 60, you are old. Else, it should return invalid age. So now, if you run this function, we have you are a teenager because we pass in 19. And if I remove the print statement out, you can see nothing is done because we are returning the value, we did not print it. So now, to let us know that when the value is being returned, you can do anything we want with it. That's why I'm printing it here. So let's test for 49, 69. As you can see, you are old. Minus 120, it means invalid age. 1.2, you can't take it because it's expecting an integer. So let's do 100. It says you are old. So our function is working just as intended. So let's edit here. You are old. Good. You are old. Good. So that's basically it for functions in that. We'll be moving to the next part. We'll be talking about Dart classes, constructors, and calling functions from a class. So as you know, we have our void main function, which is our main functions. The next thing we need to do now is to define a class. We can use the class to store different kind of variables, functions, and operation so that our code can be structured neatly when we have a single responsibility for a class to perform, and we want our code to be reusable, scalable, without rewriting the codes multiple times. So we use the class to perform that kind of operation. So let's set the variables of the class, the properties, which are age and int and the name. But we need to have a constructor in this class to assign this value of name and age. A constructor is a function that is called immediately after a class object is created. We pass in this dot name, this dot age. So let's create a function called display info. What we do here is to pass in the name and the age and print it out. So now we need to create an object from this class. We'll create an object, we call it cat. So animal, cat equals to animal. Then we are storing the name and the age. So whiskers and age 3. Then we need to now access the properties by calling our object dot name. We print it out, we see the animal is whiskers. Then let's call the age of the cat that will pass in through the constructor. We can see the animal is 3 years old. So we can also call, you remember we created a function to the class. We can also call a function from the class directly by calling the function name, the object dot the function name. So it prints out the function name. Let's create another object from the class. We call it dogs. Dog, let's give it a name, and let's give it an age. We'll follow the same process and print out the info of the dog. As you can see, we have the name and the age. of the dog. So this is how we access variable and functions from a class. This is just a simple example of a class. There are a lot of things we will learn from using a class when we move to the main part of this course, which is developing app using Flutter. This is just a basic rundown of that language for us to have a bit understanding. So let's add another variable. Let's call it breed. I'm passing into the constructor. Then let's add it to the function to print the breed also. In this case now, we need to pass the breed to the object as well. So for the cat, let's use, I don't really know any cat breed. So for dog, let's use a pit bull. And for cat, we use mountain cat. Let's print it out and see what we have now. As you can see, we now have the breed of the cat. This will be the end of our tutorial for that. In the next course, in the next video, we'll be moving on to installing Flutter and building our first app in Flutter. Thank you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you on the next one.